What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, October 12th, 2017. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air. And I know I said I'm getting tired of this whole Las Vegas thing, and I am, but there's more information keeps surfacing that we do need to pay attention to. And a couple of things have come on up. The security guard who was supposedly, who shot on the 32nd floor several minutes before the mass shooting, which is raising questions of why the hotel didn't do anything about it. It turns out that in Nevada, all security guards, armed or unarmed, have to be registered with a state agency, and this guy wasn't. So they're asking, was he really a security guard? Why was he there? And that's raising a question about, was he part of somebody's covert op and just disguised as a security officer? And apparently, over at the End Times News Report, they interviewed a Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department officer who was on duty the night of the shooting, who told him that many officers within the department do not buy the official story, and they are convinced there was definitely more than one shooter. So this thing really is falling apart, and it's another reminder that in the age of the Internet and the independent media, the lifespan of a government lie can be clocked with an egg timer, and this egg timer has just about run out there. We're getting another story that all of the people who were there on the ground, when they were leaving, getting away and everything, apparently all of their smartphones and laptops and tablets and whatever were confiscated. All the videos that got out were sent out over social media and the Internet, and that's how they got on out. And when these people were given back their electronic devices, all of the photos and videos they had taken of the event were erased. The devices were wiped. Now, that right there, I think, raises a very big red flag. There's absolutely no reason, there's no justification for the law enforcement to be deleting things off of those phones. I mean, that right there reeks of an absolute cover-up. And again, as is always the case, anytime something happens, everybody says, ooh, how can I use this to push my agenda here? And apparently over in Columbia College, Chicago, there's a professor, Stephen Ozma, who basically came on out saying that the real cause of the mass shooting in Las Vegas, in fact, the cause of all the mass shootings is toxic masculinity, because sexually frustrated men are rebelling against domestication. Well, it's Las Vegas, get a hooker. But it really is rather ridiculous how some of these people try and grab onto these things to push their agenda. And it would be laughable if people weren't actually being hurt and harmed in all of this. All right, so let's take another look at Harvey Weinstein and his adventures, because I'll be honest, I'm enjoying this. I'm really enjoying this, and it feels like it's long overdue in coming. So far, there are 34 women who have come forward to accuse Harvey Weinstein of rape, groping, sexual harassment during his reign of terror in Hollywood. And Weinstein himself may be facing rape and assault charges. Apparently, the New York Police Department has launched an investigation into a college student's claim that he forced her to perform oral sex on him all the way back in 2004. And the young lady, Lucia Evans, told the New Yorker that the summer before her senior year, Weinstein met her at a club and asked her to come in for a meeting at his office. And apparently at that point, he dropped his trousers and shoved her face into his crotch and forced her to do what he wanted her to do. Well, that is forcible rape, and I don't know what the statute of limitations is on that, but it sounds to me like it has not expired, and he may be in serious, serious trouble for that. Now, earlier in the week, it was reported Weinstein was headed for a sex addiction treatment clinic somewhere in Europe, and people were concerned he might pull a Roman Polanski. In other words, just split the country, never ever come back to avoid prosecution. As it turns out, apparently he changed his plans, and he's heading to a sexual addiction clinic somewhere in Arizona. And apparently he's not very repentant about what's going on, because when he was at the airport heading for the plane, he saw the photographers and he basically gave them all the finger. So he's feeling like he's the victim here. And no, you're not. Kate Beckinsale has come forward to saying Harvey Weinstein came on to her when she was 17 years old, underage, and that turning him down undoubtedly harmed her career. Now, she's come on back. She's done quite a few movies and everything. But, yeah, very, very believable here. And apparently Gwyneth Paltrow was trying to sound the alarm on Weinstein as a pervert 19 years ago. A lot of people were out there trying to say, this guy is dangerous. We're going to do a shout-out now to our on-air affiliates just now rejoining the network here. Now, apparently back in 1998, David Letterman had a guest on his show where Gwyneth Paltrow. Basically, Gwyneth Paltrow was on the Letterman show in 1998 saying that he was a coercer, that if you were going to do anything on any of his projects, that you would be coerced into doing things you didn't want to do. And so everybody knew this was going on. Everybody knew this was going on. Of course, everybody's trying to pretend over at Disney and the Weinstein Company, they're trying to pretend, no, we didn't know. There's no corporate liability. We had absolutely no idea this was going on. Everybody knew it. Apparently over at Facebook, they're deleting all posts about what Weinstein did. They're protecting him. You know, the chosen are looking out for each other. It's not a question of right or wrong, legal or illegal. It's, you know, we are who we are, and you don't say bad things about us, which is the same rationale out of the Anti-Defamation League. You're not allowed to say bad things about us. It doesn't matter what we do. Now, over at Tucker Carlson's show, he's out there saying that Hollywood and the media have known all along what was going on. I mean, the Hollywood community is like a small town. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody else's dirty laundry. And they were covering up. In some cases, they were assisting what Weinstein was doing. Now they're all lying to save their reputations, and the damage is already starting to spread on out there. Apparently, the Weinstein Company is considering delaying the release of Benedict Cumberbatch's latest movie, The Current War, due to this huge, huge scandal. They want this film to have a good play. They think it could possibly win an Oscar. And so they may actually delay it for a while, maybe even delay it for an entire year for the release, to try and get away from this stink, because they understand people are going to stay away from anything with Weinstein's name on it right now. Now, as I said before, there's this issue of corporate liability, and everybody is trying to claim they had no idea what was going on. Disney didn't know. The Weinstein Company didn't know. Unfortunately, that has already been shot down, because apparently when Weinstein's contract came up for renewal back in 2015, the Weinstein Company was made aware of all the settlements, all the payouts Harvey Weinstein had made to settle all these sexual assault allegations. And the Weinstein Company's rationale was, well, if you didn't use company money to do it, that's cool. But it does show they know what was going on. They allowed it to happen, and now they're open for lawsuits. Now, Rose McGowan is an actress, and she's come out with a story basically saying that multiple producers at the Weinstein Company were involved in this, in corralling women on in. There was that other story about this actress who literally was shoved into Weinstein's office by another producer. And apparently Rose McGowan came on out and said, yeah, this was what was going on. They all knew what was going on. They were enabling. They were actually helping him do these things. And so now her Twitter account has been suspended. You can't say bad things about Hollywood movie moguls. It just isn't done. Now, Anthony Bourdain, who I really have a high regard for. I love his programs and everything. He's come on out and he blasted Hillary Clinton as shameful and disingenuous over her comments on Weinstein. It took a long time for her to come on out and said, yeah, it's disgusting, it's an affront against women's rights, blah, 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 I'm not giving the money back. And it turns out that Bourdain has a reason to be angry because his current girlfriend is Aiea Argento, who was forcibly assaulted by Weinstein back in 1997. And so all of a sudden, all of Hillary Clinton's friends, they're coming out against Anthony Bourdain. How dare you say bad things about Hillary Clinton? Oh, she is truly regretful. She had no idea what was going on. Yeah, everybody knows what was going on. Now, yesterday we were talking about Seth MacFarlane, who back in the 2013 Oscars made a crack after he went down naming the list of the women who were nominated for Best Supporting Actress, and he said, congratulations, you ladies no longer have to pretend to be attracted to Harvey Weinstein. It turned out there was kind of a personal motive behind that, because apparently Weinstein had basically victimized Seth MacFarlane's friend, Jessica Barth. And so his crack at the Oscars was his attempt to sort of get back at Weinstein. So again, everybody knew what was going on. And anybody who's out there saying, I had no idea, we all know what goes on behind the scenes in Hollywood. And like I said, filmmaking, it attracts the very best of people and the very worst of people. There's almost nothing in between. There are real slime balls and sharks, and then there are people who are truly committed to the art. And on one end of the spectrum, you've got people like Weinstein and David Begelman, and on the other hand, the other end of the spectrum, you've got Renee Valente, who's a straight shooter. And there's hardly anything in between. Now, apparently, TV director Jace Alexander has been sentenced to 10 years probation on child pornography charges in New York. This guy used to work on Law and Order. He pled guilty in January to promoting a sexual performance by a child and possessing an obscene performance by a child. And he was looking at 7 years in prison and registering as a sex offender in New York, but he's a director. He's a director, and he gets probation. Now, right now, the person who was really looking at some serious flashback, this is spreading. It's spreading way beyond Weinstein himself. And right now, Ben Affleck is in the crosshairs because apparently he groped an actress at one point, even groped on video. And a Fox News reporter just groping her right on TV and thought, this is all very fun, and more allegations are emerging. And here's the problem. He is starring in the new Justice League movie. He's had the role of Batman for two films now. And this scandal could absolutely destroy the box office on the new Justice League movie before it even gets out there. The film-going community, the American people, do have a tendency to not want to see movies that are tainted by these scandals. And so these studios are going to be losing a huge amount of money, and it's partly their fault because they let it go on. They knew it was going on. They didn't want to stand up to Harvey Weinstein. Now, Kim.com has come forward to offer support to victims of similar sexual abuse in Hollywood or entertainment in general. And the entrepreneur says he's going to find funding for a class action lawsuit exposing all the sex crimes of high-ranking Hollywood executives. He's going to need a lot of money for that one because there's a lot of stuff out there. And 5 years after the mega upload raid, it seems that having a shared enemy could bring the kindred spirits together. See, here's where everybody who's got a reason to not like Hollywood is going to stand up and have their moment of revenge. Kim.com is going to have his. All these actresses are going to have theirs. I'm going to have mine. I'll be very honest. I am enjoying the heck out of this because of the way Hollywood blacklisted me back in 1994. And I didn't have a sex scandal or anything like that. I tried to report a murder. And my career was ended at that point. So, yeah, I'm enjoying this. There's a little bit of payback. And, yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'll be very honest. I'm enjoying the heck out of this. It's a lot of fun to see it happen. Now, apparently, earlier in the week, Representative Alan Green, Democrat of Texas, introduced articles of impeachment against President Trump. And already his past has come back to haunt him because 9 years ago, Mr. Green was accused of sexually assaulting his employee. So this is all going to start unraveling, this culture of silence in the face of power. It's all coming apart here. Now, getting on over to the war zones, if you will, U.S. lawmakers and the European nations are scrambling to save the Iran deal from Donald Trump. Everybody's expecting Trump will decertify the P5+1 nuclear deal with Iran on the 15th, and then dump the matter on Congress for a vote whether or not to continue with the deal. Now, Iran has not violated the deal. They're perfectly in compliance. It is the U.S. that has violated the spirit of the deal by adding more and more sanctions on there and trying to retroactively alter the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further. And European nations are looking for ways to save the deal, saying that it would be difficult to keep the deal in place if the U.S. withdraws. And it would be. Because Iran is already out there saying that, yes, if the U.S. is out, the U.S. is the main reason they were developing nuclear weapons, just as North Korea was. Because of the last going on 2 decades of U.S. invasions, regime change, drone strikes, coup d'etats all around the world. So the assurances of Europe really aren't going to do a whole heck of a lot about that. Now, the EU foreign policy chief has come right on out and said the U.S. will lose the trust of nations if it pulls out of the Iran deal. Yeah, we know that. The question is why anybody still trusts the United States anyway, because they've already done this. Same deal. They did it in Libya. Give up your nuclear weapons, we won't invade. Then they invaded. Same thing in Iraq. Give up your chemical weapons, we won't invade. Then they invaded. Same thing in Syria. Give up your chemical weapons, we won't invade. Then they invaded. And now they're getting ready to do it with Iran. Now, Europeans overall are feeling that Trump's expected withdrawal from the Iran deal is a threat to world peace, and yes, it absolutely is. Rather interesting observation in Iran Daily saying that if Trump reneges on the Iran deal, it's going to show everybody he is controlled by the Israeli lobby. Because it's the Israeli lobby that wants the deal ended. It's the Israeli lobby that wants American boys and American tax dollars to be used to smash up Iran the way they did to Iraq. And we all remember how Israel was cheerleading the war on Iraq. So, yeah, there is no easy way out of this. If Trump pulls out of it, it's a disaster for U.S. foreign policy. We're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with a phone call after these few words. Hi, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're going to go to the telephones now and take a call from Anonymous in Idaho. Aloha, Anonymous. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I was hearing you talk about what was considered forcible rape, and that happened to me with a commander in the Navy, and I have a claim in with the VA, and they've denied me twice. I've been waiting 4 years, and I just wanted everybody to know, and I hope the VA and Trump are both listening, because when he says that he cares about the veterans, he's a damn liar. And they know it happened because I was like top-notch my whole career, and then the last couple of months it just like tanked, and I was discharged with honorable.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I have family in the Navy and Coast Guard, and they've recounted similar things to me. And that may be one of the reasons why morale is so bad in the Navy, why they're so poorly trained. I think it's a hallmark of just how our entire civilization is in decline right now, that these sorts of things continue to go on.
I sure wish they would do right by people.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I'm appalled that this kind of behavior happens. I'm appalled that it is tolerated. Again, it's not just Hollywood. It's not just the Navy. Now we're finding out this congressman assaulted one of his employees. It does seem like anybody with any wealth and power feels that they're above the laws or even just civilized behavior, that they can just do whatever they want to.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, hope things work out for you. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day. We'll be right. We're going to close the phone lines. Well, no, the phone lines are empty now. I'm sorry. I'm a little troubled by that story. That is kind of rough to hear. Okay. Getting on to more about Iran. Iran is considering various scenarios in response to Donald Trump's probable withdrawal from the P5+1 deal. And basically, head of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran made the remarks on Wednesday following a meeting with British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson in London, and is saying Iran will undoubtedly deliver a proper response. Now, my speculation, and again, it is speculation, is Iran is going to demand the return of its enriched uranium from Russia, and they're going to resume development of nuclear weapons. And that will lead the U.S. to start thumping on its chest and talking about imminent invasions and military strikes. But at this point, given how much rhetoric there is regarding North Korea and lack of action, I think more and more world leaders are starting to wonder if maybe Trump is bluffing, and that Trump has been made aware of the serious deficiencies in our weapon systems, and that getting into any kind of an open conflict with anything approaching a military peer is actually going to go very badly for the United States. I mean, look how long we've been stuck in Afghanistan. We're losing in Syria. We're still stuck in Iraq. We're having to use the Saudis to go into Yemen. Still stuck in Libya. This was all supposed to be over in 2008, according to General Wesley Clark. So we all keep hearing these stories about just how poor performing America's weapons are. They're expensive. They look really cool. They don't really work very well. And now we're finding out that the crews that we put on these very expensive naval vessels are incompetent. They're crashing their destroyers into other ships. We had that report yesterday on how the crew on the guided missile frigate off the coast of North Korea is saying it's like being on a prison ship. And, of course, we just had that phone call that came on in. This does not sound like a disciplined, effective fighting force. Now, Donald Trump is expected to designate Iran's Revolutionary Guard as terrorists. Iran, in return, is probably going to designate the U.S. Army as terrorists. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. Now, over in Syria, the Syrian people who are there specifically the residents of the Syrian village of Tal Jazeera in Hasaka, understand, they remember the hardships of living under ISIS control, but they're saying that living under the constant U.S.-led airstrikes is worse. And we know the U.S. is bombing civilians. We know the U.S. is trying to aid ISIS over there. Now, over in Yemen, Saudi Arabia is continuing to impose a starvation blockade. Saudi Arabia justifies it, saying they're blocking arms shipments. And apparently a good example of that is the Kota Nazar. This was a ship from Singapore with 636 containers of steel, paper, medicine, and other goods. And it set sail to Hodeidah, the largest cargo port in war-torn Yemen, and it never got there. The ship was stopped by a Saudi Arabian warship, blocking Yemen's ports on the Red Sea. And by the way, starvation blockades are considered a war crime under international law. Story coming out now is apparently 3 members of the U.S. House of Representatives have come on out and saying that the war in Yemen is unconstitutional. Now that it's officially acknowledged that the United States is part of it, and they're saying that this is basically the equivalent of a war on the U.S. state of Washington, population 7.3 million on the brink of starvation, with the port of Seattle under a naval and aerial blockade. So even members of Congress are saying, this is wrong, this is all wrong, what we're doing, apparently on behalf of Israel. Now, again, in Yemen, the World Health Organization is saying the cholera is just spreading at a record pace in Yemen. And apparently there has not been a faster outbreak since records began in 1949. Now, aid groups have denounced the Saudi war for fueling the epidemic in impoverished Yemen. It's going too fast to be a normal epidemic. Now, cholera has been used as a biological weapon in the past during World War II, or the run-up to World War II, when Japan invaded Manchuria. The Japanese were dropping cholera in the Chinese wells. And I'm looking at the rapid spread of cholera among the population of Yemen. It's too fast to be a natural outbreak. I think they're under biological weapon attack. Now, interestingly enough, there's been a breakthrough over in Palestine where Fatah and Hamas have signed a reconciliation deal. And they had 2 days of Egyptian brokered negotiations. And finally, at the end of it, Fatah negotiator Azam al-Ahmed and Hamas's representative Salah el-Aruri smiled and shook hands in a ceremony. That is basically, they're creating a unity government. Now, Israel doesn't want this to happen. Israel always loves for there to be 2 governments vying for control in Palestine so they can play this game of saying, oh, well, we don't know who to talk to. We don't know who's in charge, so we're not going to have peace talks with anybody. They don't have that anymore. It's a unity government now in Palestine. And almost as soon as this agreement was reached, we're seeing this article out of Haaretz about how Hezbollah is determined to develop an attack capability inside the United States. Ooh, be afraid of Hezbollah. I wonder if they're going to try and blame the California wildfires on them, because they've been dropping hints all week. It may have been an act of terror. We think some of the fires were set deliberately. Israel has gone ahead and approved thousands of more settlements in the West Bank. Every single one of these new homes, of course, is a violation of international law. And Israel seems to have this attitude, because they are Israel, that they're above international law. And they're going to build another 3,736 settlement units across the occupied West Bank. And Israeli non-governmental organization Peace Now is saying the current rate of expansion means Israel risks a record year of settlement expansion. And this is in no small part because President Trump is seen as very accommodating to the construction. So basically, President Trump is now aiding and abetting a violation of international law. I guess the people who want to impeach him might look at that as opposed to this idiotic Russian collusion story. Meanwhile, the United States has withdrawn from UNESCO, citing anti-Israel bias. So the State Department announced its intention to withdraw from the United Nations Cultural, Scientific, and Educational Organization, and they're going to basically become a permanent observer instead. And they're saying it reflects U.S. concerns with mounting arrears at UNESCO, the need for fundamental reform, and continuing anti-Israel bias at UNESCO. Harumph, harumph, harumph. We're not going to go on in there. What did UNESCO do that triggered this? UNESCO agreed to admit Palestine. That's what did it. UNESCO said Palestine's going to come in. Oh, you're anti-Israel. You're talking to the Palestinians. We're going to take our bat, ball, and glove, and we're going to go home. I love this little story here. This is really bizarre. It's over at RINF.com. NATO concerned by Russia's military buildup close to our borders. So apparently back on the 9th, the Secretary General of NATO was speaking in Romania, right across the Black Sea from Russia's region of Crimea, which has always been part of Russia except for the brief period of 1954 to 2014. When the Soviet dictator arbitrarily gave Crimea to Ukraine in 1954, which, by the way, was illegal under Russian law. But the head of NATO is out there saying, we're concerned about this military buildup close to our borders. Well, what about NATO's military buildup close to Russia's borders? Do you think that might have something to do with it? Do you think all this talk about taking Crimea back might have something to do with it? Let's not forget who started this military escalation in the region, and it wasn't Russia. Meanwhile, NATO is launching a new Black Sea force to target Russia. And apparently they're going to base this in Romania. It includes an entire Romanian brigade of 4,000 troops, and the force is there to target Russia in the Black Sea region. Now, Romania is insisting the deployment is not a threat to Russia. And the purpose of having more troops there to target Russia is peace, not war. Do you remember the movie Dr. Strangelove? When they're trying to get into that Air Force base and recall the bombers from bombing Russia, and there's this big billboard out in front that says, "Peace is our profession." It was an intentional joke on the part of Stanley Kubrick, by the way. Now, Russia doesn't border NATO anywhere in the Black Sea region. So this force in Romania appears to be largely pointless except for grandstanding about NATO's readiness for a fight with invading Russian forces. And they've been predicting Russia was going to invade for years, almost all the way back to the end of the last Cold War. Russia's coming to get you. Russia's coming to get you. I remember when I was a kid, during the first Cold War, the commies are coming. They're going to invade. They're going to put you on socialized medicine. Never happened. Now, I want to get back to the issue about America's true readiness militarily, and there's an article that cuts right to the heart of the issue. This is in Business Insider, which is a serious magazine. And apparently they're responding to an interview that Trump gave to Sean Hannity on Wednesday night, where he basically talked about the North Korean crisis and basically about how wonderful our missile defense was. And Trump said, the previous administration should have handled North Korea. And praised China for its cooperation with the U.S.-led sanctions push against Pyongyang. And as I said, if China is working with the White House regarding North Korea, why are we still sending those ships in to stir up trouble in the South China Sea? There's an inconsistent aspect to our foreign policy. But Trump went on to say, we build the greatest military equipment in the world. We have missiles that can knock out a missile in the air 97% of the time, and if you send 2 of them, it's going to get knocked out. Well, unfortunately, Trump's numbers are not accurate, because the latest analysis based on actual testing of our anti-missile system is, they basically bat 500. They're going to hit their target half the time. And if your enemy has got more missiles coming in than you've got missiles to shoot back at them, some of them are going to get through. Remember during the war in Iraq, and we were told the Patriot was successful 95% of the time. Then they hemmed and hawed and shuffled their feet and said, well, actually it was about 70, 80%. And then when the war was over and the dust had settled and they went on back and took a look at what was really going on, it turned out to be about 50%. And all of these missile systems work on the basis of the assumption that the incoming threat follows a predictable ballistic path. And all you have to do is have a warhead or a rocket that is weaving, and you can't hit it. Look at Israel and the Iron Dome. Those little bottle rockets coming out of Gaza, they're not precision. They corkscrew through the air, they weave all over the place, and they can't get hit. Israel has to fire like 10 Iron Dome missiles at a huge cost each, which you're paying for, by the way, just to get one of those little Gaza bottle rockets. Trump is dangerously overconfident in our weapons. Remember when he got on the deck of the Gerald R. Ford and said, this is our latest, this is our new flagship, and military experts are saying it may never actually be usable in a real combat situation. They tried too many whiz-bang technologies, the magnetic catapults, the new radars, everything. They can't get any of it to work. We all know about the laundry list of problems with the F-35. It's reached the point where Israel and Great Britain are seriously thinking about pulling out of their deal for this boondoggle. F-22 still asphyxiating its pilot. It's been, 6 years now. Independence-class littoral combat ships, chronic corrosion problems. Freedom-class littoral combat ships, drivetrain problems. Zumwalt stealth destroyer, drivetrain problems. Trump may be dangerously misinformed about the real effectiveness of our weapons, and he could take us to war convinced that we've got military superiority when we don't. Remember those F-35s, the new advanced weapon systems don't really work. The glass cockpit system doesn't fuse the images correctly. The networked radar systems get confused about how many targets are really out there. They still don't have software for the cannon. And it's a straight dogfighter. It can be defeated by 1970s vintage aircraft. And you're going to send these up against the latest Chinese and Russian warplanes? I don't think so. Now then, for those of you who are still on Obamacare, and in this regard, one of the good things about being as old as I am is I'm on Medicare, so I don't have to deal with this nonsense. Yesterday we were reporting on, down in Florida, the annual increase in Obamacare-compliant insurance packages in some areas of Florida is going to be 71% in a single year. So I'm looking at this story. This came out of Zero Hedge, and it's an article by a guy who basically is saying he's been on 4 different Obamacare insurance plans, and the companies behind them have all gone out of business. Even with all that money pouring on in, they've gone out of business. And people are getting angry. Obamacare was never about health. It was never about insurance. It's just another way to scrape money out of the American people. And Americans are waking up to that. We've become a country of the money junkies, by the money junkies, and for the money junkies. And anything that takes money out of your pocket and gives it to the money junkies is good. And anything that gets in the way of that flow of money from your pockets to the pockets of the money junkies is bad. And there's no other morality. There's no other priority. Just suck that money out of the population. That's all you're good for in the eyes of the money junkie. If we can't get money for you, why should we let you go on living? Another article coming out of Zero Hedge here. Millennials have never been more in debt, and it is creating a major risk for the economy. Now, these millennials, a lot of them are these kids who got lured into college with promises of high-paying jobs which simply do not exist. And they signed on to these usurious student loans to pay for that education, and now they're stuck. 1/3 of the millennials are still living with their parents up to age 30. And we're seeing rising delinquencies on consumer debt, defaults on auto loans, foreclosures are up. There's a big problem with a debt-based economy, and that is if you have taken away the ability of ordinary people to trade their labor for decent wages and salaries with which to pay that debt, then collapse is inevitable. And that's where we are right now. For an economy to function, for it to perpetuate, there has to be some recycling mechanism that takes some of that wealth accumulated at the very top and brings it back down to the bottom as wages and salaries to pump back in and keep the cycle going. Under fascism, that recycling mechanism has gone away. And unfortunately, in looking at Trump's new tax plan, it is looking more and more like they're not bringing that recycling mechanism back. Corporate taxes are going down. Taxes on the middle class are going up. And Trump just this morning is out there speaking about it, saying this tax plan is going to be a boon for the middle class. No, it isn't. We're going to take a break for commercials. Got a caller waiting on the line, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go to the phones here, and we're going to start with Francis in Vancouver. Aloha, Francis. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. I got two interesting facts. I don't know if you've already dealt with them, but if you haven't, I've got here SEC Form 4, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and it's a filing by James Murren, the CEO of MGM, and on September 8th, he started selling off 294,150 of his shares in MGM at an average price of $34.08 for a total transaction of $10,024,632.
Yeah, a lot of people have pointed that out.
And the also one is a Soros fund in August shorted MGM, and let's see, they shorted 1.35 million shares of MGM in August. Now, maybe that's a coincidence, but maybe all these guys at the top, like, don't forget, on 9/11, where did George W. Bush wind up? He wound up in Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, and there was a big birthday party going on in a convention center on the air base, and it was a George Soros' golf tournament and a birthday party for him. And so the President of the United States goes there and he meets with George Soros on the afternoon of 9/11 on a military Air Force base.
Yeah.
There's something really going on weird with this government right now, and I think people are just skinning everybody alive, really.
Well, I mean, certainly the stock transactions are, in fact, very suspicious. I don't think it's a coincidence. They remind me of the short selling of the involved airlines on 9/11. And apparently some of these transactions were so suspicious, they alerted investigators who were looking for people to show up and basically cash in, and whoever had done this got spooked, and they never showed up to claim their payment. So,
Webster Tarpley said the 9/11 ones are traced back to Deutsche Bank, and that's what's his face there, who's also in the CIA. There's two brothers.
Buzzy Krongard.
Buzzy Krongard, and he's a big Zionist too.
Yep.
He's a big neocon Zionist, and that was quite a bit of money.
Yes, it was a lot of money, and
While I'm on the line, I don't.
Go ahead.
Well, just to change the subject a bit, while I'm on the line before I hang up here, to keep it short, I'd just like to draw the attention of your viewers back to 9/11. And we all know about the towers and bombs blowing up in the towers and Building 7 collapsing mysteriously. Not too many people look at Building 6. And the whole roof, and Building 6 is a small building under the two towers, only 10 stories high. The whole roof blew off it, and the whole center core of the building blew sky high, and that was before the two towers collapsed on it, for which there is photographic evidence. And I would like all your viewers to go and look up Building 6 and the mysterious circumstances surrounding its explosion. There's a lot of photographic evidence that it was blown up.
All right, we'll look at that. We're going to have to let you go. Got to do a break for station identification. Back with more phone calls after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We've got callers on the line, and we're going to start with Chris in Las Vegas. Aloha, Chris. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Thank you very much for taking the call. I've had the fortunate occurrence of having Deborah Tavares in contact with me over the couple of days, who lives up in the Northern California, Sonoma, Calistoga area, where the fire dangers are occurring, and she's being threatened and under red flag warnings continually. Many places have burned down completely. She's telling me that she would have had the occasion to attend a shareholders meeting for PG&E Electric about 4 years ago as a guest of a proxy holder, when a Rothschild was sitting on the front row and was introduced and has a very strong interest in the stockholder position of that particular area.
Mm-hmm.
She further tells me she has some insider information up in that area that has told her that apparently they're claiming that sparking transformers precipitated the fires in the area, although there were also some reports of some dry lightning, possibly from the Godbolt instruments, striking the ground and precipitating some of these fires that have been mysteriously started and burning people out of their homes. They also have reports, and she sent me video or pictures of FEMA and FBI agents armed in plain clothes going through the areas and telling people, forcing them from their homes, putting pink X's on the curbs. Now, this reasonably could be to mark for expeditious clearing of homes that have been cleared, or it could be to give foreknowledge to others that come behind to perhaps take advantage of the situation.
Well, the marks, the marks are kind of a standard thing that FEMA does. They were using them down at Hurricane Katrina, and it's a special code that says a house has been cleared, or there are still dead bodies in the house, or that kind of a thing. Is it possible that somebody set these fires to clear the land and make it available at a cheap price? Certainly could be. We know that was certainly what was going on near that wilderness wildlife refuge area, where they were trying to get those people to move off their land and have the BLM take it over so it could be leased to that Uranium One company. Was a part of that scandal. They didn't want to pay the full market price for the mineral rights to all those homeowners, so they just wanted to chase them all off. This could be more of the same. I mean, it's rather alarming to see all these wineries and all that rich farmland that are being burned up. That would certainly be prime real estate for acquisition in the aftermath.
Your observations are very astute, Michael. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned Katrina, although before I go there, the Hammonds and the Bundy ranches both had very strong associations, both with the Harry Reid cabal, interested in the lands and the uranium down there on that section and other precious metals and military aspects of the land behind it, where that special access roadway was built many years ago, not to mention the Hillary Clinton gang up there on the Hammonds property with the Rose Atom and Uranium One, the Russian entities that she sold. I think it was around 30% of America's uranium stock to the Russians.
20%.
Now, in Katrina, I remember very specifically that Craig Fugate, who was under Janet Reno's auspices as the assistant director of FEMA down there, brought in the Corps of Engineers, the Army Corps of Engineers, to abate, he claimed, dangerous homes, which basically he was bulldozing homes, irrespective of any valuables that may have retained in there of a lot of poor people and others in that area, and claiming they couldn't come back until they were completely restored infrastructure for the areas, therefore depriving them of their home life interest in land and property, and perhaps converting it to others, like you said, for future migrants or other invaders to come in and take over the property to convert it to more useful occupation uses, such as growing in these fertile valleys of the Northern California and the southern area of the United States.
Okay, well, let's back up here a little. Hang on, let's back up here a little bit, because first of all, anybody in the Department of Justice, they're not answering the Department of Justice. They would answer, the people you're talking about answer to the Department of Homeland Security, which is its own entity. It's not underneath the Department of Justice. And, this is a lot of speculation. We can't rule it out, but, we do need to see some kind of documentation and proof. Now, with regard to the Bundy Ranch and Harry Reid, the motive there appears to be that they wanted to build sort of this truck stop oasis along the highway there, and they'd already built the expansion of the highway and the off-ramps, and everything were already there, but they needed to acquire the Bundy land for the added construction of whatever it was they were going to put there. One of the things that the Bureau of Land Management has come under fire for is to declare this or that particular piece of land is necessary for wilderness protection or protect a species, and they'll take the land, and then 1 or 2 years down the road they'll say, we were wrong, it doesn't really need to be under protection, and then they'll put it up for sale. Rather than returning it to the people it was taken from, it's put up for sale, and that's how these very large pieces of privately owned land get transferred into corporate ownership.
And to that end, to the side effects of the fallout from the Las Vegas incident, they've also kicked the can down the road for the Bundy trial quite a bit, claiming they're fearful that the effects of this shooting scenario would have deleteriously on the ability to get a fair trial here, so they're forestalling that. Notwithstanding that this whole scenario here is continually changing. No one has proved any credible evidence that this accused shooter, Pollock, had any actual shooting ability that was observed by anyone, that he actually fired a shot. The security guard, Campos, was shot through the door, they claim, and that doesn't mean that the door was open. It just means that they observed him on the video cameras on the serving cart that was in the hallway. So they don't know who fired the shot. They can't assure you that it was actually the accused shooter.
Well, remember the guy in the room next door. The guy in the room next door was from Australia, and he basically came on out and he said, first of all, there were multiple shooters, and the security guard was shot by what appeared to be the police. So, the story is changing. At this point, the safe assumption is it's another false flag hoax by this government to push the gun grabber agenda. But there is no question we're seeing an unprecedented degree of criminality at the highest levels of our government, whether it's the Uranium One deal, espionage. It's very obvious our government has become a criminal enterprise. And it's preying on the rest of the world through wars, and it's preying on the American people through all these various agencies like the Bureau of Land Management.
Two last little short facts I'll leave you with.
Okay.
One is the Bureau of Land Management director of the Bundy operation for the BLM, Daniel P. Love, who refused to testify, has been terminated from the BLM. Now, I don't know what other agency he may have gone to, but he was terminated from that position. The other thing related to Deborah Tavares' situation, they had been monitoring police scanner traffic in the area, and there had been reports of black mask-dressed people doing home invasions and robberies and plunderings under the pretext of this fire on these abandoned locations. So it's a very dangerous circumstances for people who live up in that area. All due diligence and staying aware, awake, and watching what's going on, because the government is the terrorist. Thank you so much, Michael. Thanks for letting me contribute today.
All right. Thanks an awful lot there. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining the network. And we're going to switch on over to, let's see, John in Phoenix. Aloha, John. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I'm just calling it. I'm so sick of this racism stuff. I mean, the Democrats started the KKK. Lyndon Johnson came in and said, I'll get all those N-words to vote Democrat for the next 100 years. And and then they try to say that people who listen to independent media are racist. I voted for Cynthia McKinney in 2008. You have nothing good to say about, good to say about Cynthia McKinney. Alex Jones has nothing good to say about Cynthia McKinney. Richie Allen has nothing good to say about Cynthia McKinney. Jim Goddard has nothing but good to say about Cynthia McKinney. I don't understand it.
Well, first of all, you need to slow down and make sure you're using all the words there, because on a couple of them you made it look like independent media was down on Cynthia McKinney, and that's certainly not true. We've had her on the show before.
No, that's not what I meant.
Yeah,
that's not what I meant.
I know, but you have to use Mr. Tongue and Mr. Lips and get all those words out there, or people are going to misunderstand what you're trying to say. We've had Cynthia on the show a couple of times. Well, calm down. Just take a deep breath and relax. We're not going to bite you through the radio.
Get off my coffee.
Well, maybe you've had a little too much. Anyway,
yeah, I think I did.
I mean, right now they're saying anything they can say about independent media to try and get people to turn us off. They're trying to say we're all racist, we're all crazy, we're conspiracy wackos, we're tools of Russian propaganda. The Southern Poverty Law Center is constantly smearing us all. Again, saying we're racist and we're encouraging terrorism. We're certainly not doing that. All we're doing is invoking our First Amendment right to publicly criticize some of what we're seeing the corporate media pass off as news, because much of it is not news, it's propaganda.
Yeah. All right, well, take care, Mike. You have a good day.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. The phone lines are now open. Getting on back to the European news here, apparently Richard Branson has an idea on how to solve the Brexit issue. He's a Remainer, by the way. And his solution is very simple. Delay, because he said the young population of Great Britain, they want to be part of Europe. They think globalism is swell. And basically, Branson's strategy is just, we're going to delay for several years, and then there'll be a second referendum, and by then, all those old people who wanted to go back to being a sovereign country, they'll all have died off, and more of the young people will be old enough to vote, and we will remain in Europe. And so that's his strategy for doing that. So apparently this idea of democracy and the will of the people, it's such an outdated, old-fashioned concept. And we're seeing that here in the United States, where we are seeing liberals openly advocate for the use of violence to force their particular progressive agenda on everybody else. They don't want to put what they're doing or what they want to a vote, because they know they're probably going to lose, just like Hillary lost. So their new idea is that, we're not going to bother with a vote. We're just going to go on out there with sticks and masks and everything, and we're going to whoop on people until they see the world the way we want to see them. So if you really think about it, they're all anti-democratic parties. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all of these various groups. They don't believe in democracy. They don't support it. Basically, they're pushing for a dictatorship. What they want is the law. And that is basically the beginning and end of all of it. Now, this next story it's pretty sick. Apparently, down at the Miami Herald, investigative reporters Carol Marbin Miller and Audra D.S. Birch obtained video of Florida juvenile offenders being made to fight one another by state guards. These state guards in these juvenile facilities were literally running child fight clubs. And basically, the videos are showing the teenage boys are sucker punching, stomping, beating up other kids, breaking noses, breaking other bones. And the Herald uncovered tales of rape, molestation, children literally beaten to death, and a justice system that let almost every guard involved walk free without consequences. So what did the state of Florida decide to do about it? They went after the Miami Herald. They released a statement that says, actually, we're doing a really good job. You know, pay no attention to the Miami Herald. That's fake news. We're doing a really, really good job on rehabilitating these young people. No, you're not. If you're doing this to these young kids in the juvenile facility, what do you think they're going to be doing when they're finally released? They're being trained to be street criminals by professionals. And the head of the Florida Juvenile Authority is ducking requests for interviews, but their statement is the Miami Herald is wrong, the reporters are all wrong, they must hate us or something, and we're doing a really good job. And apparently the investigation began all the way back in August of 2015 when 17-year-old Elord Revolte was beaten to death by fellow detainees inside Module 9 of Miami's juvenile lockup. And two of the youths who attacked Revolte, who was beaten on camera and died from internal bleeding, said they were encouraged by a jail guard. And nobody was ever punished. Nobody lost their job. And the Herald outlined case after case where guards ordered kids to beat up other teens, sexually abused children, or watched the kids die from neglect. And of the 12 young people who died in custody in the Florida Juvenile Center since 2000, not a single guard or supervisor has lost their job or served a day in prison. Apparently, there was one guard who used a broom handle to beat inmates so often he was casually called the Broomie. And again, if you're going to treat kids like that, you're brutalizing these kids. What kind of adults are they going to grow up to be? What we're seeing here is a real-life validation of the Stanford prison study, where when you create a climate where there are guards and prisoners, the guards will inevitably evolve toward more brutality, and the prisoners toward submissiveness, resentful but submissiveness. That's why there have to be safeguards on those guards, or they're going to do this kind of stuff. And certainly when you have a state government that looks the other way and says, hey, we're doing a good job. But we're seeing, it's all about politics and protecting the image and, you know, hey, we're a great tourist destination. So over in Palm Beach, at the Palm Beach County School District, there's been a case that has been sitting since 2005. And basically it involved third graders who were ordered by their teacher to put it gently, fondle him. And the school district's position is that these 4 third-grade girls were responsible because they should have been old enough to know better than to listen to the teacher when he told them to fondle him. Now, that's ridiculous. These are third graders. They're dealing with an authority figure. No child could ever consent to being sexually abused. And apparently the school board itself didn't come up with this defense. And the school board has been embarrassed by it. Apparently they hired a law firm to deal with a lawsuit from the girls' parents. And the outside law firm came up with this ridiculous idea that these third graders should have known better and should have just refused. Now, most of you probably remember when you were a kid, that young. Adults are like gods. So it took 12 years, and the district has now agreed to settle for $3.6 million. All right, let's take some phone calls here. Kat, well, actually, no, we're coming up on a commercial break, so I'm going to hold off on the phone calls till we come back from these words from our sponsors. And so please take a listen to our commercials, and we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Let's take some phone calls here. Kathleen in Paris. Aloha, Kathleen. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. It was in response to the story you were telling about the kids being mistreated in, I guess, juvenile delinquency, incarceration or
Yes.
something, and then you mentioned the Stanford study, which was showed that it just seems to be human nature for the guards to abuse the prisoners.
Yes.
In that study, they did something like 20 kids who were just separated, 10 who were formerly classmates and friends, 10 are guards, and the other 10 are prisoners, and quite quickly the guards are abusing the prisoners. So it seems to be human nature. And there was a movie, in fact, I think it was German, that was called The Experiment about that.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it did cause a lot of upset, especially when you remember that which were the prisoners and which were the guards was settled literally by drawing, slips of paper out of a bag. And so it was totally random who got to be who. But yes, it did reveal that there is that culture, and that's the lesson out of that should have been, and was for a while, that there does have to be strict controls on the guards to restrain this, what appears to be part of human nature. We all know that there's a dark part of human nature. Just look at Harvey Weinstein. But for the vast majority of us, we get up every day and say, we're not going to be like that today. We know it's part of our makeup. We're just not going to be that way today. And that's really all it takes. But it seems like our society has lost that capability. And we seem to have evolved into a society with anything you can get away with, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, in that study, I think that they showed that something like in each 10, there was, of the guards, for example, there would be one who would be a dominant tyrant type, and a few who would go along with him, and a few are in the middle, all confused. And then there might be like one who would have some sympathy for the prisoners. So it's a study in human nature. But so we need somebody to guard the guards.
Yeah,
and,
we really do. Now, as I recall the Stanford prison experiment, none of the guards were sympathetic to the prisoners. In fact, the abuse got so extreme, they had to cut the experiment off before it was scheduled to end. It was supposed to go for something like 3 weeks, and they cut it off after just a few days.
Nobody got killed? I was thinking somebody got killed.
No, nobody got killed.
Well... and on a larger scale, speaking of somebody to guard the guards, in fact, we have something like that. The Red Cross is allowed to go into prisons to observe, but only if they agree to not publish the results.
Well, that doesn't seem to be doing a lot of good. But ultimately, in the case of Florida, the problem is with a state government that thinks this is perfectly acceptable behavior. And when the Miami Herald came out with this expose, the first thing Florida said is, no, we're doing a great job. You don't pay no attention there. We're doing a good job. So if you have a state government that is refusing to restrain the prison guards, of course the guards are going to give in to their basic human nature.
Well, I read that, in fact, the Red Cross was allowed to inspect Ghraib, what's that prison?
Abu Ghraib?
In Iraq. Abu Ghraib, yeah. And so the Red Cross was allowed to observe, but under their rules, they can't publish. They can only give their findings to the warden.
Well, I mean, that doesn't seem to be any kind of a solution.
No, because they did that. They inspected, they gave their findings to the warden, and the information went all the way up to Bush.
Now,
and so
that's funny, because when the Red Cross was looking at the Nazi slave labor camps, they were allowed to publish everything that they found. Kathleen, have to let you go. Take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're going to go right back to the telephones here. Rob in Illinois. Aloha, Rob. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind? If I may, can I reference back to the earlier caller? He was talking about the MGM stocks being sold off.
Yes.
Now, there was that September race sell-off, where there was two separate figures. One was $10 million, another one was $18.5. So we'll look at $10 to $18.5 million, and this is by the MGM CEO itself. But there was a huge sell-off back in as early as March. They sold off collectively $297 million plus worth of these stocks as far early as back as March. So they knew this stuff was happening pre-planned.
Well, the one in March, that is too early. That's way too early. I think we would have to look at the earnings of the resorts, because if they were not doing well, and Las Vegas has not been doing well with the economic downturn, they may not be seen as a good investment. The ones that happened just before the shooting, I agree, those look suspicious. But the one back in March, that may have just been a business decision.
Well, I'm referring to, we have the Zero Hedge published Kip Harridge's article from VRAletter.com, and that basically goes through it all. And you'll see he notes all the different gun stocks and security stocks and the sell-offs of the casinos and their fluctuation. So he gets in there. So if anyone wants to check that out, again, it's Zero Hedge, the Kip Harridge. It's insider trading and financial anomalies surrounding the Las Vegas attack. Very good article, and this guy's done his homework. Then we're looking at citizen journalism here, and this guy is, into the economics. But that's what most of us need to do the citizen journalism, because we can't, as you pointed out, they confiscated everybody's phones and tablets and whatever, and erased everything. So there's a huge cover-up going on, and it's only to our benefit and our safety that we start looking into anomalies ourselves and report it as we find them.
We have to, but again, we have to be more professional about it than the so-called professionals, and not let speculation and guesswork get us into trouble. And so, like I said, the stock, the short selling and the dumping of the stocks close to the mass shooting, I agree those look suspicious. We don't have evidence of a connection, but they look suspicious. The one in March, I don't think so. That's just way too far ahead. There's so many things that could have happened between March and the actual shooting that would have made it a really dumb business decision. I have a feeling somebody either needed to liquidate their stocks to get into some other kind of an investment, or they were simply another investment which promised a higher rate of return than the Las Vegas resorts. And again, with the economy the way it is, Las Vegas is not doing all that well.
Well, when it comes to Las Vegas, Mike, we have a lot of the same players involved as were September 11th. A lot of the same players are involved in this as back then. What Las Vegas is we have a hybrid false flag, which was a combination of the actual scheduled DHS FEMA drill for the active shooter, and it was hijacked, and it turned into this big debacle. And a lot of this footage we're getting out is some of this footage, which is from the recordings of the drill itself, which would be the hoax part, but then there's a lot of real footage and a lot of real activity that happened is where we're coming out now, learning that people were really injured and people are really no longer on this planetary plane with us. So it's a real big deal. It's bigger than any of us can imagine, and it could have been a heck of a lot worse. My curiosity to you: did you receive the two emails? One with questioning. The one video questioning is there's helicopters in the air and the guy's narrating. Do you hear the helicopter? Do you hear the different levels?
I haven't stumbled across that email yet, but then I get hundreds of emails every day, so I'll definitely take a look for it. But as I pointed out yesterday. Helicopters would not be able to get immediately into the area without permission from the airport, because the Mandalay Bay and the concert venue are both inside the terminal control area for the Las Vegas International Airport. They can't just fly on in there.
Okay? Well, this will blow your mind because there's a helicopter in the background and it's kind of coordinating with the shootings. But this guy is narrating. Do you hear it come closer? Do you hear it fade away? Do you hear it come closer again? Thump, 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 thump. It's very suspicious. Now, again, I'm not suggesting it. I'm just saying it's worth taking a look at. This guy made a very good, that's the same thing he says there. He's take a look at it, listen, and view for yourself.
Okay.
And the other thing is there's Gio Rios did a Facebook Live thing, and I sent you that one too, where he did a Facebook Live, and he's talking about him and his girlfriend at the concert. Shooting started and how they were herded out and to the Tropicana, and there was a lot of suspicious things happening there. And then the shooting started in the Tropicana, and he tells a whole story there, and it's a whole recording of a Facebook Live, and you also have that in an email. So I don't know if my emails go through or not. It is a Gmail account, so who knows?
Well, I'll take a look for it. Like I said, I get a lot of emails, and a lot of people are sending me stuff to take a look at it, and a lot of it's just plain garbage here. So thanks an awful lot, Rob. We're going to let you go. And before we take the next phone call, as long as we're talking about Las Vegas again, apparently Mike Adams has gone on in and done another analysis based on statements about bullet trajectory. And he is saying that in point of fact, it seems to indicate that the actual shooter was located in the abandoned Skyview Towers, which were a lot closer to the concert venue, and that would explain why videos of the Mandalay Bay do not show muzzle flashes up there on the top floors. So there's a lot of information coming out about that. All right, let's take a phone call. Linda in Rhode Island, aloha. Welcome, Linda, to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. My husband got an email with a woman wearing a T-shirt I thought you might enjoy.
Okay.
On the T-shirt it says, if North Korea bombs us, the military should kneel down and let the NFL players handle it.
I love it.
I thought you'd like that.
Yes.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We're going to let you go. Switch over to Lenny in Los Angeles. Aloha, Lenny. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Hey, listen, I have a question for you. And Mario Puzo's 1969, The Godfather.
Yes.
When he referred to Hollywood and he's saying this.
Yes.
Okay. He said that Hollywood was a nest of Jewish pedophiles. What was Hollywood's response to that, and how did that movie ever get made?
Well, this goes back to the founding of Zoetrope Studios, which basically Francis Ford Coppola and a couple of other, shall we say, renegade out-of-the-box directors were sort of running up against the power block in Hollywood, and what they did is they said, we're just going to form our own studio. And it was Zoetrope Pictures. And so the movies that were coming out of Zoetrope, every once in a while there'd be a zinger in there about Hollywood. It's kind of like when, what's that animated comedy, Futurama. Was originally on Fox News, and then Fox dumped them. They got picked up by another channel, and we had about 6 or 7 episodes where they went out of their way to poke fun at Fox News. So that kind of thing happens all the time.
Yeah, and I know there was that scene where Robert Duvall went to see the producer.
Yes.
And the producer turned him down and said that, Johnny, whatever, slick hair, whatever, ruined his leading actress who was his girlfriend. And then as he's leaving, he looks upstairs and he sees a 12-year-old girl come out of the producer's bedroom. Okay, I remember that scene, and I couldn't put it together until recently. But here's my other question. What's happened to the fathers of all these young girls and or the husbands? At least I give Brad Pitt some credit of doing what a man would naturally do. I mean, if it had been Claire, what would have been your reaction if Harvey Weinstein had done that to her?
Probably it would have been rather nasty. But I want to get back here because, it's funny. I've seen The Godfather many times, and I don't remember the scene of a little girl coming out of the producer's bedroom. But again, that may have been
check it out.
May have been the director's cut. and they took it out for TV. In fact, I got to tell you, watching movies on TV is very frustrating. They're bleeping out all the bad words. I was watching Paul, about the Alien, the comedy on Sci-Fi, and they were taking out all the bad words. And in this one scene in the bus, it's like, there's a dead microphone line because every other word is blocked out on that. But yeah, there's no question a lot of that stuff went along. I mean, we know about Michael Jackson and the little kiddies. And yeah, there's a lot of that went around. Pedophilia is not confined to the Catholic Church. It seems to be something.
Apparently, Rob Lowe was caught on camera, right? He was caught on camera.
Yes.
In being with an underage girl, and nothing ever came of it. Here's my question, and like I said, I asked you, and you told me what your reaction would have been. I know what my reaction would have been. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering, has the American male, has this wetware been totally reworked somehow that he can't even do what is natural, like an animal? An animal in a terrible situation is either going to fight to the death or is going to run to keep from dying. Okay? What is it about the American male now that not only does he put up with it, he just seems to think that he has no recourse? Please help me understand that mentality.
Well, there's two things going at work. First of all, a lot of these actresses stayed silent and probably convinced their paramours to stay silent out of fear of losing their career, which they worked very hard to get. Now, obviously, Anthony Bourdain is an exception, and he's out there going public with his anger and disdain for the Clintons because of what happened. Seth MacFarlane did a little dig, but I can imagine that somebody like Harvey Weinstein, both because of their extreme wealth and because they know there's a lot of angry spouses, boyfriends out there, he probably has very high security. And I can imagine you just can't walk into the Weinstein Company and walk into his office. There's a lot of security there, not as much as at a Las Vegas casino, but there's a lot of security. And again, I used to deal with that at Universal and at 20th Century Fox. And yeah, they're very tight about the security.
Okay, well, I just feel like that, even the story you just told about the little third grade girls where the teacher told them to they're third graders. They're going to do what the teacher tells them. They don't know right from wrong. They don't even know sexuality, man. Okay?
Yeah, you're right.
But the thing is, I'm asking what is wrong with the parents that they didn't do what should have came natural to them, especially any father.
They sued.
He should have done what was natural.
They sued. They sued. I'm sure the fathers are thinking, is it worth going to prison for? Because the idea of they needed killing law, it's an urban legend. If somebody rapes your child and you go to kill them, you're still going to go to jail, and then your child is without the parental support that they need. So you have to weigh all of those factors together. And but again, I think what we're seeing now with Weinstein, he's having his fall, and everybody who's got a reason to be angry with Weinstein or the Hollywood system in general, they're all going to start coming on out and trying to get their pound of flesh out of this deal.
Yeah, but back to The Godfather, check it out. I'm telling you, when he goes to the producer's house and they're having dinner, and the producer so much tells him to go back, tell Don Corleone that he can forget about it. He didn't say it that nice, okay?
Yes.
And as Robert Duvall is leaving the house and the butler gives him his coat and his hat, he looks upstairs, and that very little girl that was on the set earlier in the day, and they gave her a birthday cake and all that, she comes out of the producer's bedroom, and a woman comes in and pulls her back in. So check it out.
I'll check it out. I have somehow missed that all these years, but I'll definitely check that out. Okay?
Okay, thanks. Have a good one.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. We're going to switch over to Richard in North Carolina. Aloha, Richard. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you just fine.
I'm just calling I just subscribed, started paying, and I'll up that as I have more money. I'm an old retired forensic neuropsychologist for all that's worth. But I got to tell you, I've been listening to you now for a few months, and I've never heard anybody who has as much as large a compendium of knowledge that you do. It's really simply amazing. I mean, you really have a lot. But that I'm not going to play that issue too much. But I decided after about 3 or 4 months of listening to you that I have to donate. So I'm going to do that.
Good.
And I actually already have. And I just want to wish you well and keep up the freaking good work.
Well, thank you very much for the compliment here. And you said you're a forensic neuropsychologist?
Psychologist.
What exactly does that involve? You've got me intrigued now.
Well, I did a lot of evaluations of individuals with different problems. I did a whole lot of I was a general psychologist as well. I saw a lot of patients in therapy and whatnot, and that was the good part. But I also did a lot of evaluations with people with head injuries or brain damage or other psychiatric problems that would compromise their ability to cognate. And so anyway, so that's what I did as a living, and I finally got out of that because it's going to sound really weird, but I became aware of the what you want to call it, scam.
Yes.
Of a lot of psychology.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got out of it.
Well, obviously you're a person of honor, and I'm glad you're enjoying the show, and I'm thank you very much for being an RBN supporter. And we're going to let you go here. Thanks an awful lot for the phone call. The phone lines are now open, 800-313-9443. Now, you may have already heard the Boy Scouts are now going to admit girls into the organization. The next politically correct step will be to drop boy from Boy Scouts and simply say it's the Scouts. And it's all PC, and it's all going to be fun here. But I got to tell you right now, it's going to blow up in their face the first pregnancy, which it's only a matter of time. And the reason I know this is I was a Boy Scout, and I remember one jamboree we went on out there, and the Boy Scouts were set up in a camp on one side of this ravine, and on the other side of the ravine were the Girl Scouts. And the idea was the ravine was going to keep us from mixing together in the dead of night. And, folks, it did not work. We're Boy Scouts. We're prepared. And so I think this is a disaster in the making. We'll be back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And speaking of politically correct, one of our members just posted this article to whatreallyhappened.com. Student Magazine warns against racist Halloween costumes. And apparently it's this little flow chart. Takes up 2 pages. It's a fold-out. And it's basically you go down answering yes or no, and this will tell you if your Halloween costume is racist. And I think it's a little ridiculous. And for all we know, this is something that is designed to push people towards a certain line of costumes by a certain manufacturer that are politically correct so that they can make more money off the little kiddies. Product placement, in other words. Now, over in the world of gun rights, and by the way, somebody just put up this video. All of this fuss over the bump stocks is turning out to be rather pointless because you can improvise rapid-fire devices very easily for assault-style weapons. In fact, if you just hold it correctly, you can get it to rapid fire. So, again, they're going to pass a law. It's going to affect law-abiding citizens, and it will have no effect whatsoever on real criminals. And that's how our government operates. The laws are all to keep the law-abiding citizen corralled while the criminals run free, including the criminals in the government itself here. So over at the Ninth Circuit Court, and they really are a bastion of liberalism over there, because they've come down with this bizarre ruling that says the Second Amendment may grant citizens the right to keep and bear arms, but there's nothing in the Constitution about a constitutional right to sell firearms. That's what the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in Teixeira versus County of Alameda, basically affirming the government's constitutional authority to regulate gun stores. This was a 9-2 ruling, Now, you can see on the face of it, it's absurd. This is an attempted end run around the Second Amendment, but clearly shutting down the gun stores is an infringement of our right to keep and bear arms. An argument could be made it's also a restraint of trade. And my concern is that because so few people are really buying in to this official story of Las Vegas, that there are going to be more of these false flags. Until the gun grabbers kill enough people where we'll just throw up our hands and say, all right, take our guns, just stop killing us. Which I don't think is going to happen for a very, very long time. In fact, every time they try another one of these gun grabber stunts, gun sales go through the roof. Now they're trying to find a justification for shutting down the gun stores. Hopefully the Supreme Court will intervene on this one. We'll be right back after station identification. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And Donald Trump just got done signing a new executive order about health care. And it's going to make it easier to buy insurance outside of Obamacare. Going to open up competition, which will drive down prices, drive down those deductibles. And apparently it's going to allow the expansion of association health plans that will let trade groups and small businesses band together to purchase health insurers at a discount the way large employers do. And these plans are also going to be exempt from some of the Obamacare rules. And what Trump is doing is he's trying to whittle away at Obamacare in the face of a Congress that apparently is deeply financially invested in maintaining the status quo. So we'll see what's going to happen with that one. Speaking of healthcare, article out of Investment Watch blog talking about how there's this push from CDC to give Gardasil to little girls and even little boys out there saying it's perfectly safe. It's perfectly safe, and it's an expensive shot. And your practitioner gets half that money. They're being incentivized to stick this into kids. This stuff is not safe. As of 2014, serious injuries and deaths reported to the vaccine injury authorities from Gardasil, 11,240 emergency room visits, 4,030 serious adverse events, 3,014 hospitalizations, 949 patients disabled, 561 life-threatening reactions, 149 deaths attributed to the Gardasil vaccine. There are now some countries in Europe that have forbidden it, that banned it. But here in the U.S., it makes money. And as long as it's making money, it's a good thing. If it makes you sick, well, that's good for the economy because now you got to go to the doctor and you got to buy more medicine and more of this and more of this other thing here. Getting on back to the PC universe, this one is just a little bizarre. Apparently over in Denmark, they are wagging their finger at the United Nations over the UN's use of the phrase pregnant woman in some of their demographic information. And Denmark's rationale is the phrase pregnant woman is transphobic. Because after all, men can be pregnant too. Really. And I had to pair this with that scene from Monty Python's Life of Brian, where the guy's out there saying, I want to be a woman, I want you to call me Loretta, I want to have babies. I mean, it really is just reaching a point of silliness. And again, it's an attempt to confuse us as to who we really are, what bathroom to use, and so forth. Now, over in Great Britain, there's been an interesting development. Apparently, there was a taxpayer-funded British transgender charity that was supporting a mother who was forcing her 7-year-old boy to live as a girl for 3 years. And the judge has ordered them to stay away from the child because apparently they were getting ready to give this kid hormone treatments to turn him into a girl or start the process. And the hormone treatment is banned by British health authorities because it causes irreversible changes and can compromise fertility later in life for anybody under 16. And we're talking about a 7-year-old kid. So this has opened up this custody dispute because the kid did not want to be a girl. This was the mother's idea. Oh, it's, we're gender fluid, and I think I'd rather have a girl than a boy. And Justice Anthony Hayden ruled that the child is going to be removed from the mother's care and live with his father. Apparently there was a divorce, and the judge said that the mother has caused significant emotional harm to the child in her active determination that he should be a girl. They're harming these children. These kids are too young to understand what gender is. They're too young to make that kind of a choice. And how a parent can do this to a child? I mean, it's considered politically incorrect, but you need to look at what happens to these transgender people who go through the hormones and go through the surgery and everything, what happens afterwards, because a lot of them do not do very well. They discover that their emotional problems weren't really connected to the plumbing downstairs, and they still have those emotional problems, plus the new added problems from having gone through the surgery and taken the medication. So I think the judge was right. Now, up in Canada, completely different direction. Over in Ontario, they're considering a new law, Bill 89, which will replace the Child and Family Services Act, which governs child protection, foster care, and adoption services. The new one is called Supporting Children, Youth, and Families Act, was introduced after the legislature passed Bill 28, the so-called All Families Are Equal Act, and has similar ideological leanings. Bill 89 requires child protection, foster, adoption service providers, and judges take into account and respect a child's race, ancestry, place of origin, color, ethnic origin, citizenship, family diversity, disability, creed, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression, and allows the government to seize children from parents that oppose gender transition. And again, these kids are too young to know. So now they're trying to impose gender fluidity on the population under threat of prison. I mean, out in California, you can go to jail for using the wrong gender pronoun. You're going to serve more time than if you rob a 7-Eleven. We really have become a decadent society. And if you look in your ancient history at other civilizations as they edged closer to collapse, the more bizarre their society became in terms of what was considered permissible or even advisable behavior. So let's talk about computers here, because apparently Equifax website has been hacked again and redirects to a fake flash update. You would think by now, after all the damage, management change, and the rest of it, that they would have perhaps taken a look at improving their IT security. Now, of course, security is very, very difficult for two reasons. One, all of our systems have got holes drilled in them by the NSA and the CIA, so the government can keep an eye on us. Unfortunately, the cyber criminals are finding all of these little exploits, backdoors. So far from making us more secure, the government is aiding and abetting the cyber criminals. The other one is the issue of malvertising. The online advertising industry doesn't seem interested in cleaning up their act. And it's a real problem. We have to deal with it over at whatreallyhappened.com on a regular basis. You'll get an advertiser who seems legit, and they'll be okay for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden they're serving up malware to our readers. We're going to do a shout-out to our Honor affiliates who are just now rejoining our network here. Apparently down in Australia, a mystery hacker has broken into one of the defense computers and managed to steal sensitive data on the Australian version of the F-35 and their newest spy jets. 30 gigabytes of defense-related data covering fifth-generation F-35 fighter jets, as well as Australia's newest warships and spy planes. Now, the hacker apparently has a handle, nicknamed Alf, after the Home and Away character, and they breached the defense contractor's database containing these 30 gigabytes of files on some of the West's most secretive and modern military programs. So it all leaked on out there. All right, let's take a phone call. Rob in Indiana. Aloha. Rob, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, I've got three things. I'll try and be real quick.
Okay.
One of the first ones was you've got the legions, American legions over there. If you go in and look, they've got the Army, Navy, and Air Force newspapers. You're talking about the 35 and the 22 and the deficiencies. In the Navy article, they were talking about 40% of the Pacific Fleet having not passed their certification for war readiness.
Yes.
They were talking about their oilers, their supply ships, how many of them were almost past the age that they were supposed to be before they were retired, the downtime on them, how many, the percentage. I mean, it just goes on and on. The Air Force with problems with their cannons. One of them blew the canopy off of a Warthog. All kinds of problems, yet all of those newspapers are talking about the Russian involvement in the Balkans, and yet they're talking about how we're putting in train lines and building maintenance shops over there right on the borders. The second thing I wanted to get into real quick was he keeps talking about Trump wanting to do away with the Iran deal. And he said, well, we're giving them $19 billion, and what are we getting? $19 billion, it's their own money. We just grabbed it.
Yes.
And we're costing the American taxpayers just about that to support the illegal immigrants every year. So, you know, where are you standing on this one, Trump? I mean, it's their own money. Let them have it back.
Well, in not letting them have their money, I mean, again, it is the United States government that is violating the spirit of the deal, because returning that seized money to Iran was part of that P5+1 deal. And yeah, it's very arrogant of Trump or John McCain or any of these people to say, we're giving them that money. No, we're not giving them anything. It is their money. And the U.S. government froze it, and unfreezing it was part of the deal.
Exactly. And the third thing I had real quick, I'll run this by you, see what you think. The narrative on this Weinstein and the fires that are mysteriously starting, is this like a Bill Clinton bombing the pharmaceutical plants to take the news away from Monica, because the narrative for the Las Vegas shooting was falling apart? Even the local news is dropping the Las Vegas, the most dangerous, you know, the guns, everything has gone out the window now that we've got Weinstein and the fires. Is this, they waited till now, I mean, they've had this guy for 3 decades, basically, that they knew this was going on, and they wait till now. Is this a distraction from the press not needing to keep covering the Las Vegas story that's falling apart right before their eyes?
Well,
it seems suspicious to me.
Well, you know, there's a lot of things going on here. They're not really covering the wildfires all that much, because anybody who looks closely at what's going on is going to understand that the fires have gone out of control because those fire breaks were not being properly maintained, because all the money is being spent on weapons. As far as Weinstein, anybody who is that out of control and abusive, sooner or later, it'll break. And everybody that they've abused comes forward. We saw the same thing with Michael Jackson. Somebody is actually trying to float the theory that Weinstein's being thrown under the bus because he had agreed to make a documentary about vaccines with Robert De Niro, which I find that a little bit out there. But again, there's no question that Weinstein has been a monster the entire time he's been in Hollywood. Even before the Weinstein Company was really all that big, he had a vile reputation.
Yeah. Well, the timing just seems a little suspicious for me, and that's all I got, because this sounds like Bill Clinton and Monica. Distract. You know, the one narrative's falling apart. But, well, that's it. I'll let you get on with it. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. And let's not forget that the wildfires in California started before the Weinstein story really broke. So I don't really see that there is a connection there at all. Okay, getting on back to, we have another caller. Let's just go ahead and take that. James in Tokyo. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. How are you? Hope you're well.
Doing fine.
No, I'm really happy that Bill Clinton finally came out about the Weinstein thing. He said after hearing how Weinstein tried to bed beautiful women like Angelina Jolie and Gwyneth Paltrow, that he said he became disgusted because he realized that he went into the wrong field.
Well, I told you about that quote from Alec Baldwin, right? Talking about the Hollywood culture. And he said, if you want money, you go to work on Wall Street. If you want power, you go to Washington, D.C. If you want lots and lots of free sex, you go into the fashion industry. But if you want all three in one poison cocktail stirred with the swizzle stick of, hey, we're doing something creative, you go to Hollywood. And he's absolutely right about that.
Yeah, he is. I really shouldn't compare Clinton to Weinstein, because Clinton, he's not as bad. He was a lot more sensitive to the people he raped, because after he raped a woman, at least he would say something like, you should put some ice on your lip. So he was a lot more sensitive than Harvey Weinstein.
Well, the like attracts like, but I mean, it did take the Clintons a long time to realize they had to say something about it. And I think probably the calculation was simply the realization that Weinstein is not going to be in a position to be a donor any longer. That checkbook is going away. He's going to be sued for every cent that he has, and if he can't donate to future campaigns, then it's okay to come on out and criticize him.
Well, I commend people like Anthony Bourdain, who, said something. I believe that many people, including myself, have been thinking. You got the Obamas and the Clintons, best friends with this guy. They vacation together. They rent houses next to each other, and it takes them so long to come out. And I believe the only reason they did it was just too far gone. They wanted to see how it went, if you can get out of it or not. And then when they realized the guy fell, he just fell really fast. There's nothing they can do. Then they came out.
No, I think rats and sinking ship. That's exactly what's going on here. And I also admire Anthony Bourdain for speaking out the way he did. And I'm sure he understands he did so at risk of his career. We're still seeing there's a hardcore element within the corporate media and Hollywood that still thinks they're going to find a way to make this story go away and portray Weinstein as the victim or a hero or the rest of it. And again, Weinstein has already hired a lawyer who's already out there saying their defense against all these allegations is going to be to smear and destroy all these women.
I'm taking a lot of pleasure in watching all these
I am
liberal
too.
Democrats in Hollywood turn on each other.
Yeah, I am too. And again, I'm not going to be shy about it. After what happened to me in 1994 over the Vince Foster affair, I'm enjoying this a lot.
But that was only a murder, Michael. That was only a murder.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, see something, say something. You've probably heard that expression. That's exactly what I did. I saw something, and I tried to do something about it, and my career just disappeared. I would have been much better off if I'd, raped a young production assistant or something. I'd still have a job. I'd still have a career.
Well, all's well that ends well, because we're all very happy that you're doing this show. It's a great show, and it's nice talking to you, Michael.
All right, thanks an awful lot, James. We're going to let you go. And, I'm feeling a slight sense of joy and revenge that all of these liberal elites are squirming that they've lost a big chunk of funding for their future campaigns. And yeah, I'm enjoying seeing this all come down because of what happened to me when I was in Hollywood. So we're going to take a break for commercials. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. We will be right back. America, welcome back to our show here. Now, Microsoft, which, first of all, they have definitely botched up the latest update to Skype. And it's not just me and my machine. I'm going out on the World Wide Web. I'm just seeing hundreds and hundreds of complaints and no response from Microsoft. I'm going to take a guess here that the free version of Skype is about to be replaced with a for-pay version, because that seems to fit the pattern. They force everybody onto a new version of Skype that really doesn't work, and then they come along and say, well, you really want to buy the professional version. And they're already doing that to the business version of Skype. They've already announced new commercial product coming on out. I remember many, many years ago when we were back on Windows, well, I think it was Windows 3, maybe. I think it was. Anyway, we had Outlook. And Outlook back then had a cool little feature where my Outlook and my wife's Outlook would trade emails back and forth to keep the calendars perfectly synchronized. And it was automatic. We didn't have to think about it. And then when we upgraded our machine and we got the new version of Outlook, that feature was gone. And if you wanted to sync your Outlook folders, you had to get Microsoft Exchange. It's now a commercial product here. Let's see. We're going to take a phone call. Steve in Florida, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, my first call to you as a new resident of Florida out of California, and my backyard is burning. As you know, I live in Northern California, Sonoma County.
Oh, boy.
So I think I dodged two bullets. I dodged Irma, and I dodged this one. So, no, hey, I heard one of your callers talking about Harvey Weinstein, and I brought back, well, we've always known about the casting couch in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. This is nothing new, so I have to ask myself, and Harvey Weinstein being Jewish, they only go after other Jewish people if they've scammed other Jewish people, like Bernie Madoff. So my question would be, what the heck did Harvey Weinstein do other than take advantage of those little things he did, which is commonplace in Hollywood, the casting couch? What did he do that now they're attacking him?
Well, again, I think it just reached a flashpoint where there were simply too many of these scandals, and the fact that the New York Police Department has now opened an investigation for a rape charge. That's not something you can cover up. What are they going to do? Threaten the New York Police Department? They'll never work in Hollywood again? But there's a real interesting question about what's going on with Harvey Weinstein or Weinstein. I've heard it pronounced both ways now. Let's be brutally honest. There are a lot of young women in Hollywood who are just willing to give it away, thinking it will help their career. Why go after the ones who do not want that kind of attention? And that is a question, I think, that speaks to the fact that it's not really about the sex, it's about the power.
Yeah. Well, the whole pornographic industry, the filming industry, and adult entertainment is all about that. I mean, these women are not threatened to go into this industry. They do it for career advancement or whatever, or the money is so good they do it. Like I said, it's been common knowledge. The casting couch has been around a long time, and now women are finally coming forward. And I think they're cherry picking these people. They're out there beating the bushes trying to find these women, the same way they did with Bill Cosby. And I got to think there's a bigger picture to this Harvey Weinstein, that something else is cooking that he did. He scammed somebody, and this is a payback.
Well, there's one other possibility. Harvey owns the majority of the Weinstein Company in partnership with his brother. They started in business together all these years ago. They came out from New York. And Harvey has been dropping hints that this is all a ploy by his brother to drive him out of the company and take it over completely. I don't know if that's valid or not, but we remember how, what's his name, the former head of the IMF, was driven out. Dominique I forget his last name, was driven out with that allegation that he had sexually molested a maid, which turned out to be completely bogus, but it cost him his job, and it allowed somebody else to move on in.
Yeah. So we might be looking at a Cain and Abel for corporate greed of a company.
We could, or we could just be looking at this old lech who just grabbed one woman too many. Could be that, okay? Got to take
thanks, Michael.
Got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the telephones. Deborah in Ohio. Aloha, Deborah. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today? Deborah, are you there? Okay, we lost her. Let's switch on over to Mike in Brazil. Aloha, Mike. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Thanks for taking my call, Mike. I appreciate your show. You're the best in the independent media. Honest to God, you're the best in the independent media. I'm also watching Alex Jones shows and all that, but you are completely the best there is. Okay, now, first, I got to give thanks to Lenny from Los Angeles, which is my hometown, actually, and Dustin from New Jersey. These people articulated everything I wanted to say. This is the reason why I haven't called for so long, because these guys are beating me to it, So kudos to them. Anyway, really, it's not. No, I'm serious. I mean, these people were saying the same things I was going to say. So I said, what's the point of calling? Just clogging up the phone lines. So Lenny from Los Angeles, congratulations, and Dustin from New Jersey, congratulations. Okay, now. I know you're a pacifist, and so am I. The problem is that the United States will not collapse the way you think it will, because the United States, unlike Soviet Union, has a printing press and has the currency as a reserve currency of the world, which Soviet Union didn't have. They will print money, keep the government alive, until some meteorite is going to strike the United States and kill every one of us, okay? Well, not every one of us, every one of you, because I don't live there. But the point is this. This is going to come to an outright civil war. There is no way to stop this. And I can see it coming. I've seen it before in Europe, in Eastern Europe. They started the same way, and it keeps program I live close to the airport, and it's a military base here. They have heavy aircraft flying overhead, helicopters, and the news has it that these people are preparing a coup and depose the current government of Brazil. I don't know if this is going to come to pass, but I'm just giving you this update. I don't know if this is going to happen. Probably it will, since everybody's familiar with the history of Latin America.
Yes.
They change one dictator for another. And another thing I was going to talk about is this hype about gun control and stuff. Look, we have in Brazil, nobody can buy a firearm. Nobody. I tried to obtain a firearm permit, and they only allow you to have a restricted caliber, meaning that something lower than 32, meaning 7.65 millimeter, which is not sufficient because the bandits, they all have AK-47s, M16s, military-style weapons, fully automatic, okay?
Yes.
Not semi-automatic, fully automatic. And they managed to kill, on the average, about 4 cops every week, okay? I'm talking about Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, okay? They shoot them like it's a shooting gallery. They kill every day when I turn on the TV, okay, I see like 2 cops killed, 3 cops killed, 5 cops killed. It's like never ending. People can't buy any guns here. It's impossible because, first of all, they don't have any gun stores. The only guns that you can get here is by, the contraband. They come from Bolivia, they come from Paraguay, they come from Argentina, they come from, other nations. But the point is, gun control is not going to solve the problem.
Well, we already know that from Chicago. We already know that from Chicago.
Yeah, but you know what, Mike, you know what their argument is? Oh, yeah, well, the bandits in Chicago, they go to Texas, buy the guns in Texas, and then go to Chicago and rob them. Okay, the problem is this. My question is this. If this is really true, why aren't the bandits, the bad guys, doing the robberies in Texas? If they steal the guns from Texas or they buy them in Texas, why do they go to Chicago? Well, they can do it in Texas. Why travel to, why go
Well,
the extra
because
mile,
you try and commit a crime in Texas, there's a good possibility you're going to get shot. The criminals love areas where the citizenry has been disarmed. That's why Chicago has this out-of-control gun problem. It's why crime problem. It's why Brazil has an out-of-control crime problem. Gun bans only help the criminals. Now, I want to step on back here to your comment about the collapse of the United States. First of all, Russia had their own printing press to keep their money going. But they eventually succumbed to a debt that was simply unsupportable. As far as the U.S. dollar still being used for global trade and banking, that's rapidly going away. More and more countries are joining one of these alternative groups like BRICS or the Asian Infrastructure Development Bank, or they're doing treaties to do direct economic trade in their own currencies across their border. Iran and Turkey just signed such an agreement. And that's why the United States is in a panic, because they understand with our manufacturing in decline and nobody wanting our GMO agriculture, if the world stops using the U.S. dollar, this country's finished.
Well, from my point of view, Mike, this country is already finished, because I'm looking at this propaganda to turn kids into transsexuals and homosexuals and all this stuff. It's repugnant, really repugnant.
I agree.
Mike, I can't believe. I mean, I'm not a father. I'm just like you. I'm the same age as you. Okay, we're on par. In terms of experience and living years. But I tell you something. I would dread to send my kids or my kid to a school where he or she will be indoctrinated into changing sex. All I know is this: you want to know who you are or what you are. Pull down your pants, look in the mirror.
Yep.
You'll find out who you are.
No, I'm in agreement. And again, for adults, if an adult says, I'm this or I'm that or I'm gay or whatever, fine, more power to you. Personally, I'm a lesbian trapped in a man's body. But when you're talking about little tiny kids, I'm in agreement with that judge in Great Britain. It is emotional abuse of a child. When you're taking a kid who's that young, 7 years old, you've made them live like a girl for 3 years, and now you're trying to force hormone treatments on them to turn them into a girl because the mother wants a girl instead of a boy. And I'm in agreement with the court that took the child away from the mother and gave it to the father because, that kid's going to be in therapy for years over this.
Mike, so am I. I'm in absolute agreement with them, with their decision. I remember I was 12 years old, 13, and I had no idea what sex was. I mean, I had no idea what this is all about.
Yes.
Other boys my age were a little more developed than me, and they were looking at women's legs and all that stuff, and they would say, hey, check this out, check this out. I said, check out what? And they said, oh, man, you're a retard, something like that. They used to call me a retard. But, you have to approach a certain age before you can discern these things like sex, like sexual orientation and all that stuff. And, of course, you can't teach these kids at such a young age that, gender is fluid. No, it isn't. Gender is encoded in the DNA.
Yes.
You are that's what it is. XX is woman, XY is a man. Okay? End of story. I don't care what these people are saying.
Yeah, Caitlyn Jenner, if you do a DNA test, that's a guy. May have the outside plumbing and the rest of it, it's still a guy. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. And one of the things that I really get angry about is how liberalism really does seem to believe that politics can override science, whether it's issues of gender or global warming or any of this other stuff, this idea that if enough people believe that something is so, that makes it so. And that's not real world.
Mike, we live under cultural Marxism. Okay, get used to it. We live under cultural Marxism. And to make a side note, talking about guns and all that stuff. Okay, Brazil had a disarmament law passed in 2003. Okay, and they disarmed the entire nation under the pains of death. Actually, they said, if you don't turn in your guns, the police is going to come into your house and shoot every one of you to death, okay? They threatened the population into surrendering the firearms, and before 2003, everybody could have guns. After 2003, after Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who was the failed communist president of Brazil, who's now actually under indictment for fraud and a lot of crimes he committed, now he decreed this law under the UN agenda of disarmament, and they left everybody without guns. And criminals might believe me, they all are armed to the teeth.
Of course they are.
Not with revolvers or pistols. I'm talking about heavy guns like AKs and M16s and all that. So gun control doesn't work. Okay, so I hope the government listening into your show, and I'm sure they are.
I'm sure they are too.
It's not working. It's not working. Take it from me. I live in a country which has been totally disarmed. Okay, for you to get a shotgun, you have to go through so many hoops. You won't believe. You give up. Really, you give up. And the taxes are so high, it disincentivizes people to buy even a shotgun. So, people in the States, okay, too bad I'm not there anymore. I feel homesick. But I tell you something, people who are there, hold on to your guns, okay, because these people are going to come after them. And I see this thing about Las Vegas. It's sort of a travesty, what's happening there. So, all I want to say, Mike, is you got one of the best shows. I listen to a bunch of other shows, and John Stedmiller's show is excellent also. I listen to it. So keep up the good work. You're doing an excellent job. Too bad I'm so poor I cannot donate to your show, but listen, I'm working on it.
Okay.
All right?
All right, I appreciate that.
Thanks
well,
a lot, Mike. I appreciate you taking my call.
All right, you're welcome there. And the thing is, when you have to say, is gun control working or not, you have to ask, what is the real purpose of the gun control? And if the purpose is to reduce crime, obviously it doesn't work. It never has. It creates a crime, zone where the criminals know they can go on out and rape and rob and mug and burglarize, and they're not going to have any problems here. So,
I was robbed at gunpoint last year. They stole my passport. They took my wallet. They took my cards. Everything I had in my wallet. Two guys jumped out of a pickup truck and pointed guns in my head on an obscure street. I was going to an emergency room, right, because I had a problem. And on my way there, I got jumped by these guys in a pickup truck, and they put the guns in my head, and they asked for my cell phone. I said, I don't have a cell phone. I don't use one. Well, I was lying because I had left my cell phone in the house. So they said, they started searching me, and they took my wallet, they took my passport. You won't believe the night that I went through to get back my passport.
Yes.
So gun control only serves one purpose, to keep the elite safe.
That's exactly the point I was making.
Kind of revolution.
Gun control is people control.
Right, because, that's right. No, it's like every revolution starts from the middle class, and they disarm the middle class. They don't care about the bandits. They don't care about the bad guys. No, all they care about you is an individual, because they know that the opposition comes from the middle class, and they want to eliminate that. So anyway, Mike, let me let you go, because you probably have a lot of calls waiting, all right? Thanks a lot for taking my call. You got a great show. Keep doing it, all right?
As long as I possibly can. Thank you very much. And as a matter of fact, the phone lines are open right now. Getting on back to the world of computers, Microsoft's update servers are pushing out a new, apparently unannounced, Photos add-on app with no explanation of what it does, and Windows 10 users are wondering what's going on. Why is Microsoft doing that? Especially because apparently another one of their patches to Windows 10 is basically besodding the machine, the blue screen of death every time they boot up. And apparently others have been unable to get back into their machines at all. After the system crash, it's an endless boot loop. And Microsoft says, yes, it's a problem, and we're working on a fix which will be included in a future update. But here's the problem. If your machine won't boot, how do you update it? I mean, Microsoft's quality has really gone downhill. It's like, I guess all the good programmers left. They've gone to other countries or something. Or they simply have fired too many to try and stay profitable. But I remember back, even as far as Windows 7, we started seeing this phenomenon of patches that would cause more harm than good, patches that would literally cripple and paralyze a machine, and you were caught, between a decision. Do you update and get the latest security patches and run the risk of wrecking your machine, or do you turn off the updates completely and rely on your other security software to keep you going? And a lot of people are feeling very caught about that. And now we have, again, a patch to Windows 10, and the machines, some of the machines are not booting. And Microsoft says, yeah, we're going to fix it in a future update. It's like they're not even rushing out a fix to this thing right now. And again, for those machines caught in a constant booting loop, how do they apply the update? I think in a lot of ways our technology has become so decadent, so bloated, it can't be efficiently, effectively managed anymore. And that's why we're seeing all these problems with the new version of Skype, with Windows 10. It's one of the reasons I'm really enjoying my Raspberry Pi. And again, I'm not surprised that these retro reproduced computers like the Commodore 64 are actually enjoying a vogue. People want to go back to when computers were simple, useful, and you spent all your time either playing with them or getting work done instead of all your time just trying to get them to work at all, which is where we are right now. So we're going to take another break for commercials. We're going to be back with the last segment of our program after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, last segment of the program today. Now, do you remember that story that came out in the New York Times where they came on out and said that Kaspersky software, produced by that Russian-based company, had been used by Moscow to spy on the United States, which led to the Department of Homeland Security recommending all U.S. government agencies stop using Kaspersky. Well, apparently Germany's cybersecurity agency conducted an investigation, and they say they found absolutely no evidence to support the accusation that Kaspersky is anything other than what it claims to be, an antivirus, anti-malware security application. Now, remember, the allegation that Kaspersky was being used to spy appears to have originally come from Israel, who hacked into Kaspersky's servers. But whatever they did or did not manage to do, it's not part of the release package. And so here we have, once again, gratuitous Russia bashing. How many stories have they come out with about Russia did this and Russia did that and Russia's colluding with Donald Trump, and it's always nothing burger, nothing burger, nothing burger, nothing burger with fries, nothing burger with pickle, nothing burger, and this is another one. The motto of the U.S. government right now seems to be, if at first you don't succeed, lie, lie again. Now, apparently over at Outlook, again getting back to the questionable quality of Microsoft product, apparently Outlook actually staples your encrypted emails to the plain text copies when sending messages. This is definitely a dumb bug. Apparently, if you use Microsoft Outlook to encrypt emails, researchers at security outfit SEC Consult found a bug that causes encrypted messages to be sent out with their unencrypted version still attached. And the bug is activated when Outlook users use S-MIME to encrypt messages and format their emails as plain text. And when sent, the software reports the memo was delivered in an encrypted form, and it appears that way in the sent folder. But attached to the encrypted text is an easily human-readable, clear text version of the same email. This somewhat bypasses the whole idea of having encryption. Now, is this just more stupidity on the part of Redmond? Or were they ordered by NSA to include a clear text of the message along with the encrypted version, and somebody goofed it up so that it could be seen by persons other than the NSA? Because remember, that's what they were doing with both Clipper Chip and DES to bypass all of those. Apparently over at Sonos, if you reject the new terms of service, which is basically a private data slurp, they turn off the functionality of your device. And this is coming out of the register in Great Britain. And they're basically saying, you know something, I'm going back to an old-fashioned stereo. Buttons, stereo speakers, wires, and an amplifier. It sounded better anyway. And by the way, I'm seeing retro stereos show up in the stores. People are getting just tired of all this digital everything. There's the music. Time for me to get out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. He's got a lot of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here and share it with everybody that you know. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.